With West Asia as our top focus, after weeks of cross-border bombings, Gaza's Islamist rulers Hamas have announced that they have reached an agreement with Israel. The deal has been mediated by Qatar. The Qatari envoy delivered the latest portion of $30 million aid in Gaza before holding talks with Israeli officials in Tel Aviv. For several weeks, Gaza, under the leadership of Hamas, has launched hundreds of balloons laden with incendiary devices and explosives into southern Israel. Large tracts of farmland have also been torched. Thousands of Israeli civilians have been living on the edge. Meanwhile, Israel responded with frequent airstrikes and tank fire on what it claimed was the Hamas military infrastructure in Gaza. Israel has also banned the Gaza fishermen from going to sea. It has closed its goods crossing with the territory, which has prompted the closure of the Palestinian territory's sole power plant for want of fuel. Israel and Hamas have fought 3 wars and several smaller battles since the year 2007. The restrictions have pushed Gaza's economy to the brink of collapse. More than half the population has been left unemployed. And so as Israel and Hamas agree to ease hostilities, which seems like a historic development, at least for now, it is important to understand what exactly is the Hamas-Palestinian movement. Hamas is the largest Palestinian militant Islamist group that has ruled the Gaza Strip for decades. Some say it's a terrorist group. Others call it a gang of thugs that seized the Gaza Strip at gunpoint. Originally, Hamas had a dual purpose of carrying out an armed struggle against Israel and focusing on social welfare programs. Since 2005, it has also been engaged in the Palestinian political process, only to become the first Islamist group in the Arab world to win elections through the ballot box. Hamas assumed full control of Gaza in June 2007. While Hamas is sovereign in Gaza, Fatah, which is another dominant party, continues to rule the West Bank. Hamas defines itself as a Palestinian Islamic national liberation and resistance movement, using Islam as its frame of reference. But that's not all. Israel's new peace deal with the UAE has transformed West Asia, with short-term pacts being signed and concessions made by the nations who earlier did not even see eye to eye. Now, the new ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas is the perfect example to highlight how the Arab world is acting differently. Embassies are being opened, trade and technology is getting exchanged. Direct flights between Israel and UAE are finally possible via Saudi skies. There is cooperation on energy, security and intelligence, which wasn't even an option earlier. Even the Hezbollah is now open to discussing a new political order in Lebanon if all factions agree to it. It was the United States that brokered the Israel and UAE peace deal, while Qatar mediated the ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas. It appears to be a win-win situation for Israel, with nothing to lose but gains to be made. There is a visible demonstration of the fatigue of some Arab leaders, though, particularly in the UAE and Saudi Arabia. With the Palestinian leadership and their cause, they no longer want to be held back by what they see as Palestinian rejectionism. The geopolitics of West Asia is changing, no doubt. The fault lines and enmities have shifted from the Arab-Israeli conflict to tensions between the Arabs and predominantly Persian Iran. With all the deals benefiting only Israel, it might signal to the formal creation of an anti-Iran bloc, possibly with more states to join. And so Iran and its proxies and allies in Syria, Lebanon and Iraq, the Hezbollah in Lebanon and the Houthis in Yemen, have been weakened and broken by war.